In 1943, a skeleton was discovered in a tree in England. A year later, mysterious graffiti appeared on buildings, walls, and bridges. In 2016, a rash of videos popped up on the internet of strange people dressed as clowns. In 2014, Lars Mittank ran from an airport never to be seen again. And every year, on January 19th, a mysterious stranger enters a graveyard with 3 roses and a bottle of cognac to raise a glass to a famous writer. Join me for some interesting mysteries. On April 18, 1943, 4 boys, Robert Hart, Thomas Willits, Bob Farmer, and Fred Payne went searching for eggs in Hagley Wood in the English countryside. During World War II, rationing had made some go hungry for days on end. So some, after escaping the cities, scoured the countryside for anything edible. Bob Farmer noticed a wych elm that he felt would be perfect for birds' nests. He climbed the tree to find a hollow hole in the trunk, and inside, he discovered a skull. At first, Farmer thought it was an animal skull, but after seeing clumps of hair near the skull and pulling the skull out with a stick, it became clear that the skull was human. The tree was only 6 feet tall, the opening of the tree trunk only being around 17 inches. The 4 boys put the skull back and made a promise never to talk about it again, but one of them confessed to what they found to their father. The father contacted the police, and Thomas Willits led the police to the wych elm. Police would gather the skull and more bones found within the area thought to be human. The police sent these bones to forensic scientist Professor James Webster, who was able to partially reconstruct the skeleton of a woman between the ages of 25 and 40 years old. Webster had established that the deceased had been dead for around 18 months, placing a time of death sometime before October of 1941. Inside the mouth of the skull he found a cloth, leading to the theory that the woman had been asphyxiated. After measuring the trunk of the tree, it was suggested that she had been placed there just after she was dead. Rigor mortis would have made it impossible for her to fit in the tree. Whomever put her inside the tree had to have done it when the body was more malleable. A description was released to the public to try to identify the woman. Described at 5 feet tall, with brown hair, and wearing a cardigan and a skirt, along with blue shoes, as one was found outside the tree and one found inside. But this was during World War II. There were many women, men, and children missing in the UK at the time due to bombing raids by the Nazis. Even with her distinct dental work, the skeleton of the woman would remain unidentified. Fast forward 1 year later. In March of 1944, a message was written on the outside wall of an empty building in Birmingham. The message read, "Who put Bella down the wych elm, Hagley Wood?" It was written in chalk, high on a wall, suggesting that an adult placed the message there. Police looking into the graffiti found a report that had gone unnoticed until this message was found. On a house on Hayden Hill Road, months earlier, a similar message had been left. It read, "Who put Lubella down the wych elm?" The message was in the same handwriting. The way the spelling of the word witch, spelled properly for that kind of tree as W-Y-C-H, suggested that it was somebody familiar with the countryside. So the police began looking into the names Bella and Lubella and asking the public if they had any information, and if they did, to come forwards with it. While some came forwards, nothing matched what was found in the tree. The messages continued, in the same handwriting, on buildings around the Birmingham area, up until 1970. All different, but somewhat similar. The name Lubella or Bella was in every message. The mention of the tree or the location of Hagley Wood, all in chalk. But what was it pointing to? Some concerned citizen who wanted to give this poor soul a name? Or a killer taunting the police? But who the woman was has never been identified. Theories on her identity range from a missing sex worker to a Nazi spy. A sex worker named Bella had gone missing in 1941, and she worked in Hagley Road. In 1953, a woman named Una Mossop came forward with a story from her ex-husband, Jack Mossop. Jack confessed to the family, according to his story, that he was the one who put the woman in the tree. According to the story, Mossop and a Dutch friend had gone out drinking one night. There they were in the company of an unidentified woman. She became drunk and disorderly as they were driving through Hagley Wood, so they stopped. pulled her from the car, and left her inside the tree to sleep it off, then forgot about her entirely. The odds of this story being the correct one are far-fetched, as Una Mossop came forwards 10 years after her former husband's death, and there is no evidence other than her word that this story really happened. On August 15, 1941, a German spy named Joseph Jacobs parachuted into the UK, landing in Cambridgeshire. He was caught, and on him was a photo of a woman who matched the description of the woman found in the tree. Clara Burrell was a cabaret singer and an actress and was being trained as a spy, and Jacobs was her lover, and the two were to make contact. After making contact, she was supposed to come to England herself, but though her picture matched the description of the woman, there was never any record of her showing up in England. She died in Berlin on December 16, 1942. Her height also doesn't match the skeleton found. She was 6 feet tall. The skeleton was at best 5 feet. The last theory was suggested in 1953, that the woman was a part of a spy ring and was a Dutch woman named Clarabella Dronkers, a woman the spy ring supposedly killed for knowing too much. There was one I skipped because it deals with someone's fringe theory that it had to do with witchcraft. I felt that it really wasn't important to the story. To this day, the skeleton found in the Wych Elm has not been identified, and who put her there remains a mystery. On October 7, 1849, Edgar Allan Poe died under mysterious circumstances. Circumstances that will be discussed in this series at a later date. But the writer has more than one mystery surrounding his name. Each year on his birthday, a mysterious figure visits his grave at night, with 3 roses and a bottle of cognac, to raise a toast to the man who defined horror and mystery. Every January 19th since 1930, a man clad in black with a silver-tipped cane would enter the Westminster Hall and Burying Ground in Baltimore, Maryland. With him, a bottle of cognac, 3 roses, and sometimes a note. He would walk up to the memorial stone for the famous author. He would pour a glass and raise a toast. Then he would arrange the 3 roses, leave the unfinished bottle, and disappear into the twilight of the early morning hours. If anyone saw him, he would not speak to them. This tradition became popular enough to garner crowds to watch. Some reporters, some fans of Edgar Allan Poe. The stone the Poe toaster goes to is the original grave of Edgar Allan Poe, not the one he is now interred into. The roses are a reference to the 3 people who were buried at that site originally before they were moved. Edgar Allan Poe, his wife Virginia, and his mother-in-law Maria Clem. The cognac is thought to be a family tradition for the toaster, and not for Poe himself. Contrary to popular belief, though Poe did drink, he seemed he couldn't handle his drink well and rarely did so. The notes that have been left have been read and are known to the public. One note in 1993 read, "The torch will be passed," suggesting that the individual who did these toasts was a family tradition, and not the same person every time. In 2006, a group of onlookers did try to detain the toaster to no avail, and that was the only instance of onlookers getting involved. In 2009, the tradition abruptly stopped. 2009 was the bicentennial of Poe's birth. That year, the toaster did not leave a note. In 2010, the toaster did not appear. In 2011, imitators started doing the toasts. But in 2012, the toaster again didn't show, suggesting that he and his family had retired the tradition. In 2015, the Maryland Historical Society revived the tradition. The toaster is still anonymous, but since 2015, the tradition has been carried on with explanation. The tradition began as a mystery. Why was it started? Who started it? Was it a family that was friendly to the Poes whose ancestors decided to honor that closeness? Or a fan of Poe's work, wanting to honor the author? The summer of 2016 had seen a bizarre trend of footage being uploaded online. People dressed as evil clowns, sometimes with weapons, sometimes without, all terrorizing people in the most strangest of locations, from fields, to woods, to walking down the street. These masked people delighted in chasing other people, but were they real, or were they made for content? Was there a link to the movie It, Chapter 1, which would come out a year later? Or were there really individuals looking to terrify the public? Sightings of people dressed as evil clowns is nothing new. There had been many of them in the past. 3 years prior to 2016 and 2013, there was a rash of them, but nothing to the effect that 2016 generated. The sightings began on August 1st in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and the video became viral. After this, videos from drones, people, and dash cams and Ring doorbells flooded YouTube. People being chased with sometimes evil clowns holding dangerous weapons that can harm someone. The trend caused harm to actual clowns throughout the world. McDonald's had begun to limit Ronald McDonald because of it. Circuses and clown associations were also affected. Places in the United States and around the world like New Zealand banned clown costumes. On October 25, 2016, the news began reporting that a massive attack of killer clowns would happen on Halloween Eve. That failed to materialize, but it shows what was going on in the world at that point. This mystery is, why did it start? For this one, I'm going to give my own opinion, that it was a trend. The first video went viral and others decided to make their own evil clown videos. And then others decided to dress up as evil clowns to scare those who would capture it on video. But what started the original video? Some suggested that it had to do with Pennywise. It Chapter 1 was going to be released in 2017. The theory states that this was all just a publicity stunt, but it doesn't make any sense. It Chapter 1 came out on September 8, 2017. If it was a publicity stunt, it was a year too early. If the rash of sightings had anything to do with the movie as a publicity stunt, they would have continued well into 2017. But the sightings tapered off by the end of 2016 and rare in 2017. The sightings were designed to scare people, that much is for certain. But what started it, and the reasons why ordinary people would go to extreme lengths to scare people, is uncertain. The last case we'll be looking at for this episode involves a missing person. On June 30th, Lars Mittank traveled from his home in Germany to Varna, Bulgaria. On holiday, it had been his first time being outside of Germany. On July 6, 2014, he and his friends went to a bar, where he had a disagreement over soccer with some German nationals. After this disagreement, Mittank would separate from his friends and would be missing for the rest of the night. His friends had thought he had just returned to the resort, but when he wasn't there, they figured he would turn up later. In the morning, he did return to the resort, battered, cut up, and bruised, with a ruptured eardrum as well. He had told them he had been jumped by 4 men who had been hired by the group of German nationals that he had a disagreement with. Mittank saw a doctor, and though he was supposed to fly back to Germany the next day, he was ordered not to fly. His friends couldn't wait with him, but he was stuck in Bulgaria until his ear was healed enough to fly. For one night, he checked out of the resort and into a hotel. He would be in contact with his mother and his friends. But something was drastically wrong with him. He was paranoid, suggesting that people were out to rob and kill him. Security cameras at the hotel captured him pacing up and down the halls. At one point he left, only to come back at 1 a.m. The next day he made it to the airport, ready to fly home. But before he could, he had to meet with a doctor named Dr. Kosta Kostov. According to Dr. Kostov, Mittank was erratic and nervous. Dr. Kostov gave him the okay to fly home, but Mittank didn't leave the office. Instead, he began to question the medication he had been taking. Construction had been going on at the airport, and a construction worker entered the office. And when Mittank saw the construction worker, Mittank lost control. He screamed he didn't want to die and ran out the doors. CCTV footage captured his running from the office, out the airport, and through the parking lot. He climbed a fence and ran through a meadow. He left behind his luggage, his wallet, his passport, and his cell phone. The camera capturing him running to the fence was the last time anyone seen him. Mittank had no history of mental illness, nor did anyone in his family. It is suggested that he had a rare side effect to the antibiotics he had been taking, which caused him to become paranoid and fearful. But according to Dr. Kostov, Mittank never filled out the prescription. The most likely reason for his actions were that he suffered a mental breakdown due to the injuries to his head. He did have a ruptured eardrum, which suggests that he was hit pretty hard in the head. What happened to him is unknown. His mother believes that he lost his memory, is still alive, and is wandering Bulgaria. A year after his disappearance, a truck driver believes that he sighted Mittank hitchhiking in Varna. There have been sightings of him in other countries, but none of them have been confirmed. In 2019 in Dresden, a truck driver picked up a hitchhiker and drove him to Brandenburg, Germany. Later on, that truck driver became aware of Mittank's case and stated that the person he had picked up bore a striking resemblance to Mittank, just older. Lars Mittank is 5 foot 11 inches tall with dark blonde hair and a scar on his left forearm. He is thought to have lost his memory. The German police are still looking for him. I wish I had a number to give out for the German police, but if you or anyone you know who lives in Germany or Bulgaria have any information regarding the whereabouts of Lars Mittank, please contact your local law enforcement. Thank you for joining me. If you have a suggestion for a mystery I should look into for some interesting mysteries, please leave a comment, DM me on Twitter, or message me on Discord. Links to my Discord server is in the description. And of course, if you have a theory of any of the mysteries discussed in this video, please comment on the video with your theory.